I've never seen that go to the X, Y.
All right, everyone, we're going to get started in about a minute and a half. The under 2 minute mark. Morning.
It's not other problem. Yes.
I don't know who has the bar cart, but if they could please make their way up to the chairman's chair, that would be well appreciated. I think I broke out in hives and rashes after that meeting. All right, we're almost there.
I move to adjourn.
30 more seconds.
Maybe these guys should get their laptops on their shoulder. Whole schools. I agree. What?
We could give them all the obsolete ones we have.
Don't they're better than ours, yeah.
All right, is everybody ready? We lost Madam Chair. Where is she? Oh, she's back here. Okay. Give me just a moment. Yeah. Everybody get your snacks in. Hey. Time being 11:09 a.m. It's 11:10 a.m. There we go, round number. I'd like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's American Rescue Plan Committee for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022. Clerk, please call the roll for attendance.
Bates. Here. Brown.
Brown here.
Frost.
Ross here.
Gums.
Unmute.
She might be on break.
But she's here.
She'll be back.
Okay.
Yeah, she
Ken-
said she'll be back in 10 or 15. So.
Oh, good. Kenyon.
Yes.
Leonard.
Leonard here.
Martin.
Pardon, present.
Molina.
Molina present.
Strathman.
Strathman here.
Tepe.
Here.
And Sanchez.
Sanchez present. All right, I'd like to ask for somebody to request unanimous consent to approve the minutes of August 31st, 2022.
Ask for unanimous consent to approve the minutes.
Mr. Tepe requests unanimous consent. Any objection? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comments. I'm aware of at least one public comment for today. Will there be any more? I know Mr. McQuinlan wanted to speak, so we'll call him up first. And just say your name and is this a agenda or non-agenda item?
I know the routine.
Yeah, you've
but
been here before.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak. My name is Bob McQuillan, and I am from Batavia, previously Geneva. I wanted to speak on the Safety Act. I know that this committee has done a lot of work and spent a lot of time in trying to figure out an act that is brand new and really kind of no one knows the ins and outs of it in a perfect form, I would think. So I thank you for that. But what I'm concerned about is information going out to the public about how the money is being spent. I actually went through all of the packets from all the meetings, all the way back to your first meeting in July. And in most of the meetings, it was the agenda sheet, and then a couple of resolutions and nothing else given to the public. Now, I know there was additional information given to you because I sat in some meetings when some spreadsheets were given, but it was never released to the public. And that really concerns me. If I'm sitting here as a public guy, and I hear that you received $103 million under this act, where did you spend it? And it's not clear. And, you know, there's numbers being thrown around. You know, the county is keeping $60 million for themselves to spend for different departments. Then you hear it's 40 million. Then you hear it's 8 million was dispersed or allocated for mental health issues. When I hear that the county has received this money and they're retaining 60 million of it. I'd like to know where that is exactly being spent. And there probably is a record somewhere, and what has been allocated per department. And I know the mental health, that, there's been some disbursements already and there's still some money allocated, but according to what I could find, there's no disbursements anywhere else. Again, I believe on the meeting on August 31st, there was a presentation with a spreadsheet. I think it was given to or by the accountant that's doing it, but he showed it on the screen, but not in the packet. There's no way to find it. So I guess I just want to emphasize the fact that while most taxpayers in the county or residents of the county don't follow things as closely as I do on the board, and there are other people that do, we're interested in these things. And when we can't find the answers, it makes me very concerned. So I would just suggest that the committee releases all information. And what I'm really looking at or trying to find is what departments it was allocated to, what it was for, and where it is in the process. Has it been approved and allocated, but is it in vetting process? It is in the process of getting the final approvals. Has it been dispersed? And that can all be done on one spreadsheet. And if you want to educate the taxpayers, then that's how to do it, to show them. We spent $10 million on a department in the county, but this is what we're doing with it. So again, it's not been clear. I thank you for your efforts and your time spent, but don't forget the public, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McQuinlan. Anyone else that would like to deliver a public comment at this time, in person or online? Okay, we will move on. Program manager update, Mr. Phillips.
Sorry about that noise. Peter Phillips, American Rescue Plan Program Manager. Update today, we have a couple of slides which I'll go over momentarily that pertain to a spreadsheet that we have just finalized the format of. This is information that we've been building over the last several months as we build this program. So I would like to briefly go over the slide one, Blair, which is the dashboard that was distributed, and everyone has a hard copy of 11:7. It's easier to follow here. And I also emailed about an hour and a half ago members the digital copies of this if you'd like to follow on your laptop. It is paperclip to your agenda. I'm sorry. You
under there.
in half. I'll give a second for we get this information. Information I distributed last Friday evening to you in your end of week summary. So I'll just go over some of the numbers that I track, and of course, any questions that anybody may have regarding any of the data on this, I'm ready to answer questions here. But so the number of grants for, and this is the community support grant dashboard. Section 1 of the metric here, the overall program metrics and key program dates. I will go over the totals to the far right. So of course, we know there are 46 community support grants for the $4 million allocated to be dispersed for the community support grant, which is 501c3 organizations. The average amount of grant, the size is 86 or round to $87,000. Amount of submitted expenses thus far on the $4 million is $1,396,960. And that represents all but 16 of the awardees who have their 16 awardees that have not submitted expenses. This spreadsheet indicates that there are 17 this was developed last Friday evening. So since then, we have had one more submission that had not contacted us. So these 16 remaining awardees have not followed up since we executed their grant agreement. So there have been numerous emails. Right now, we're at the point where we are emailing and calling. So there's 16 calls we're going to need to make this week to the executive directors or their representative, whoever is on their grant agreement, to ascertain if they need further time or assistance. And I have had conversations with the majority of the 16 outstanding, and many of them are smaller organizations that are just taking more time because they have limited or no staff to compile this information. And some of them do not have sophisticated systems. So we are, as a program team, assisting some of these awardees. So I'll skip down some of the other interesting information. I think is that the amount dispersed to date, and I'll put this into perspective, is $881,357 have been dispersed to these 501c3s as authorized by the county board. But that number is relative. If you look at section 3, and this isn't numbered, I apologize, but in section 3 of the metric, the status of based on total amount granted. If you look at the fourth line down, the amount in review, we currently have $231,707 in expenses that are being reviewed for the next submission date, disbursement date. To the right of that, in the total column, we have $236,477 that are 4 packets that are in the process for disbursement this Friday, the 30th. These monies have been submitted to finance, passed the finance review and input in the New World system, and the auditor has reviewed, and the auditor has forwarded these packets on to treasurer for check cutting this week. So the 3 numbers, the amount distributed 881,357, and the amount currently in review, the 231,775, and the amount to be dispersed this week, 236,000, accounts for $1.3 million of the $4 million of the fund. Now, of that, a big chunk of that money is associated with what we call the big 6. And there are multiple disbursements. They each have $333,333.33 to submit expenses for. So that is the bulk of the remaining grant monies to be dispersed. The 4 organizations that will have checks dispersed this week are Fox Valley Hands of Hope, Suicide Prevention Services, AID, and Lighthouse Foundation. So that is the community support grant dashboard. And if no one has questions on that, I can speak to the departmental projects. But yes, sir.
Mr. Tepe,
May I make
Sorry.
a comment, Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
Okay. As everybody here probably recalls, I've been somewhat critical of, can you hear me?
Microphone, please.
Pardon?
Some of them are weak. You have to get up on them a little
Okay.
more.
I've been somewhat critical of the fact that, it takes a tremendous amount of consulting and detail work in order to do some of these. And I spent several hours, almost felt like several days, but several hours with Peter going over the process and the details. And what I'd like to do is to really suggest that individually and as a committee, we look at presenting and approving grants that are relatively easy to account for. We have created our own accounting nightmare here that ends up costing us more to review. And I understand the necessity for the review. Looking at the attorney's side over there. I understand the necessity for the review. It again just bothers me that has to be done in such depth So I think the way to resolve that is for us to look at grants that are relatively easy to identify and to get justified and get payment for, so that there is not the kind of delay and detail work that's necessary. So, but anyway, thank you for the time, the 2 or 3 days that we spent in your room one morning.
And I welcome anyone that would be interested in coming to my office and going through processes, the electronic systems that we have developed that aren't available and open to the public, but it gives an idea of the work that not only I am doing, Jenny is doing, Mr. Sanchez, but the heavy lifting that State's Attorney's Office is doing, and of course, Ernst and Young. But I think it does give a good perspective and understanding of what is being done and the focus of the staff. So I welcome anyone that would like to, Mr.
That has
Tepe.
your duty pay, I'm assuming.
Excuse me, sir?
Spending time with Seppi, that has your duty pay.
I was in the military. That was nothing. So was productive.
Yeah, it's good. Any of you have questions, come in, see, look under the hood, see how the thing works. If there's any ideas for improvement that come about that, that's good. That helps the whole program run better and more smoothly. Madam Chair.
And thank you. And the one thing I always make comments on your charts. Firstly, I think following up from our public comment that this needs to be in the packet, so that if it is it in the packet? Or
The agenda, this in the agenda packet,
correct?
it was not, because we just finalized the format. It was in draft format. So going forward, this, or I'll speak with Chairman Sanchez and what exactly he wants, but this or some variation of this will be in future packets.
Okay, and if it's late, I believe that there's a methodology of putting it as an attachment instead of including it in the packet, and you can put it in an attachment as late as yesterday. So it's there for the public. But the other thing is just a comment about this. You were reading off the agencies that you're going to be releasing checks for. Perhaps you could put that in, especially for the big six, so we can track how much money they're going. I'll be attending an event tomorrow with AID. And that's nice for me to know as I say hello to their executive director, knowing that, yes, the check is on the way.
Of course, and we will do that, but I would encourage anyone that has any ideas, thoughts, or other data that you'd like to see tracked on this dashboard, we will take that input and customize this. But Madam Chair, I would say that the second page 2, yes, is a reference, and that doesn't give you exactly the information you're looking for regarding checks that are in the mail, but we can expand on this for you, for your reference.
Yeah, and also, I will go back and make sure that we're including these in our minutes, any information that's presented at committee. I think that's typically our routine with standing committees. But we are in the process of updating the webpage, which is sorely lacking right now for this program. Once that's complete, all of the up-to-date information will be there on a regular ongoing basis. There's just been so many other tasks that we've had to accomplish. Some things get pushed down, and communications to the public is very high. But it's technical, it's time consuming, and if you guys want us to hire a part-timer, another part-timer, or a full-timer to help out, I'm more than happy to, but we're trying to avoid that. So it's coming soon. Can't give you a date, but very soon. Ms. Bates.
To speak to Mr. Tepe's comment, I have told Mr. Tepe that I really like how he speaks out, except when I don't agree. But I would, and I'm going to partially agree and partially disagree. When you say, let's go for the grants that are the most easily tracked, I need to say, let's go for the grants where the need is greatest. And hopefully they will be trackable.
They're not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Excellent.
He's right.
Mr. Shepro.
Maybe this is anticipating something. I had a question about the departmental spreadsheet.
You'll be getting to that in a moment, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
then
yeah.
I'll
If there's any other questions for this portion? Anyone online? Okay, Mr. Phillips.
So, slide 2, Blair. So, Mr. Shepro, I will just briefly go over this and then open it to questions. This does not contain a lot of data. One thing that does, based on Madam Chair's, input a moment ago, it just gave me the thought that this needs to identify more specifically, the department requests that are actively being worked and assessed, and there are 7 of them. And I didn't annotate this here, but we will going forward. The 7, in no particular order, well, alphabetical order, I guess. The Buildings Department, Environmental and Water Resources, which are the 4 projects that Director Wolnick's working on. And I'll summarize where these are in the moment after I tell you what they are. The 3rd is Kane County Clerk, which has a resolution today. Excuse me, it does not. The Kane County Health Department. The Public Defender's Office has a resolution today. The 6th department that we're actively working on and assessing their projects is the County Development Department. And then something new that I think Mr. Sanchez will discuss. So maybe technically it wouldn't be annotated here as an active working, but we are beginning the Veterans Assistance Commission assessment. So that is where we are with these department requests. This chart indicates the total requested projects, the first column, that is a cumulative 71 projects across all county departments that are to be assessed. And then recommendations made to the committee based on those assessments. Those assessments are reviewed by both State's Attorney's Office and Ernst & Young. It's actually, the risk assessment is determined by Ernst & Young, and State's Attorney and I, Chairman Sanchez, review them. So I would open it to questions.
Mr. Shepro.
Yeah, so my question was what some of these titles across the top mean. For example, total requested projects. I know the committee divided into groups of 2 to come back and recommend projects, and not every project I think was recommended. Is the total requested the ones that passed that threshold?
Yes.
So they were not all of the requested things. They were the ones that came back and this committee approved them. And then I guess similarly, what does pending department meeting mean and pending department feedback?
So we have our team look at it, and I think what we've transitioned to now is just beginning our assessment of these projects with the department head itself, the person who requested the project. So that's really, if it's pending, that means there is something scheduled or to be scheduled. Environmental water resources, those are on hold right now. We fast tracked 4 of Ms. Wolnick's requests, and we'll be coming back to the others later. With the public defenders, it says that it's pending department meeting. We didn't actually need a department meeting. We were able to assess the project. It's very simple, and that's why.
Meeting just means that you want more information before you move ahead.
Yeah, we have to understand how they envision they will spend the money, weigh that against how we can spend the money. And if we need to make some changes in their request, then
So
we do
then-
that. And we're going through that process with multiple
Pending
departments right now.
department feedback means you probably had a meeting and you asked questions and you're waiting for a response.
Yeah, it could mean that as well.
Got it. Thank you.
Department feedback, yeah. Any other questions on the department requests at this point? Okay. Mr. Phillips?
The only other thing that I have to say about that, I guess, is a follow-up to that. So I'm taking those notes, so we will make these adjustments. We've selfishly used in terminology that we're using as a working group. So we will adjust some of these column headers to translate to some common terms for conversation and interpretation. That's all I have on this particular spreadsheet. I do have an update for water resources. Director Walnick has her 4 projects. She had them all out to RFP. One came back earlier. She submitted 3 of the 4 RFPs to State's Attorney yesterday for review. And she anticipates having a presentation and follow up for the committee on the review in October for the water resources projects.
Is that it for your report, Mr. Phillips?
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yes, that's it for my-
Okay.
my report.
Any questions for Mr. Phillips before we move on? All right, thank you, sir. Community Support Grant Dashboard, we covered that with your presentation. I have nothing else for other committee matters.
Oh, I do.
Madam Chair.
If I may, thank you very much. And I'll ask Mr. Van Kerkhoff to come up and to speak to this as well. If you remember, several weeks ago, we had a summit on workforce housing. And Secretary Diane Shelley came to speak to the board. If you remember that, about the importance of workforce housing and how she supported our efforts and our initiatives. Yesterday, I was able to read a letter that she sent to us, to me, and then, of course, I'm following up and sending to make sure that all of our appropriate department heads have it. She would like us to consider, if we're going to talk it, we should walk it, have some of our money go to support affordable housing. Workforce housing would be the effort I think we should take a look at. So I'd like to bring Mark up, if he could just speak to that. There's additional resources that also she provided to help support this, but it's the ARP committee, the ARP money is allotted for supported housing.
Now, is this separate from the economic development
Okay,
concept? Okay.
so
Yeah, this
All
was a
This
a
is separate
separate,
from.
separate issue to
Okay, yeah,
that.
because I was gonna go to that,
But
okay.
late breaking in that, since the departmental applications were submitted a year ago, the issue of workforce housing is a across the board need, quality of living, but also economic development.
Louder, please.
Economic development issue has really come to the forefront. We learned a lot with the Workforce Housing Summit that we conducted in August. And I think what we're learning from Secretary or Regional Director Shelley and her team is how the federal government is working through HUD to make sure communities are aware of how ARPA funds can be used to address housing needs. So that's something I'm going to be taking a look at with Scott Berger and his team and other departments, and maybe forthcoming with more information. But given the letter that was just received that Madam Chairman just mentioned, we've had some more resources and information to work with.
Excellent. It's good to hear.
It's important.
Madam, Mavis,
I'm going to change the subject a little bit. So if we're still on affordable housing. I'll
yes,
wait.
let's, and then I have something else that Mr. Van Kerkhoff is gonna discuss with us as well.
Okay.
What's that?
Okay.
That's intentional, Mr. McQuinlan? Is there any other questions or comments on the affordable housing issue? Mr. Shepro?
Yes, I guess what puzzles me about this is that in most cases, affordable housing is a local municipal decision. We as a county can't tell Batavia that they have to have affordable housing in a particular place. So I guess I'm wondering, what is the county's mission? Is it just educational? Is it what planning, assistance? Because the municipalities, I think, all have their own grant money. So I guess I'm just wondering what is the mission that the county would be undertaking and expending funds?
Sure, that's a great question. That's what we're going to look into more with Scott Berger and his team. He administers federal monies on behalf of many of our communities through our Community Development Block Grant Program and Home Consortium, as well as we're already using one of our programs, our CPACE program for financing that was part of the layered financing that made the successful project that just had a ribbon cutting in Aurora for the old Copley Hospital site. So a lot of times these deals, to make them happen, it's a real layering of financing and things that make it happen. So we want to look in to see how ARPA funds might be used in that suite of things to attract development. But you're right, that usually the local land use decision is going to be on behalf of the municipality, but there are things that the county is already doing to help incentivize housing.
So at this point, it really would be sort of an investigative, how can we help and how can we assist? Rather than we have a plan to build affordable housing in the unincorporated areas, say.
Correct, yes.
Although that may be an exceptionally good idea.
Thank you, Mr. Shepro.
If you can find a way to provide sewer, water, and other services for dense housing, you can make a lot of money.
Somebody will make a lot of money.
Somebody make a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Any other questions on this? Okay, so there's another topic. It's kind of somewhat time sensitive, and it relates to one of the current department requests from our development department, and has to do with economic development. So I'll let Mr. Van Kerkhoff just briefly discuss that after the conference that you and Madam Chair attended. I think it was last week. It seemed there was a consensus from other counties that we all want to try and work on this as quickly as possible. So I know we're working on a resolution that will ideally be going to executive committee next week and then on to the full county board. But it does come from one of Mr. Van Kerkhoff's current requests. It's not an additional request of ARPA funds. So I'll let Mr. Van Kerkhoff speak to that so that you can then ask any questions you have.
Sure, yes. One of our departmental requests is for launching a economic development organization for Kane County. And we were recently awarded a state ARPA grant to do the study work that we need to do in advance. Part of that organization would be providing outreach and business attraction and things that will help our economy in the long run. At the same time, on a parallel track, CMAP has been leading our regional partners, City of Chicago and other collar counties, and how we can do some of this work better regionally. Blair, I don't know if you have that link to Kane County Connect story you could put up real quick. But we've been working with the Brookings Institute. They've been looking at best practices around the country for what that would look like in Chicago.
Mr. Van Kerkhoff, I know you had a couple handouts. Do you have those?
Yes.
Jenny, can you pass those?
So you may have seen this was on Kane County Connects, but this is a photo of Madam Chairman with the other county leaders. They were briefed on the progress and had agreed to go back to their respective county boards to get support and keep the momentum going for this. So the resolution that we'll be preparing for executive committee in the October board meeting will be a resolution supporting the regional collaboration in principle and in concept, as well as for a 3-year funding commitment that would pay our share, a pro rata share for the services that World Business Chicago would be providing on behalf of the region. Blair, can you put the other memo up? This is a memo that was released right after the summit on what that collaboration is going to look like. And I just wanted to briefly draw attention to the 4 bullet points, because these are 4 things that any countywide economic development organization is already doing. Choose DuPage, Lake County Partners. These are the kind of things that we'd be having our own countywide organization do. Research asset mapping, requests for information response and funding, hub. Generally, those are large companies that are looking to relocate or build facilities in the region. Global engagement, including trips to other countries, but also receiving foreign trade missions, and then entrepreneurship and innovation on a regional basis. So by participating in this regional effort, that'll have a financial cost to it, but it'll also reduce the financial cost of what we would be having our own organization do. So it's sort of a more efficient and way to do what we're going to do as a county. This is just getting going before we have our own organization launched, but we'll benefit it from right away. So the commitment that we're looking for will be $100,000 a year for 3 years. I'm working with Peter and the Arpa team to make sure it's Arpa fundable. World Business Chicago has issued a memo of their opinion on being Arpa fundable. Our team is grilling me with great questions, information to get to make sure it is. Our staff recommendation would be if for any reason that it's all or part of it is not deemed by our team to be Arpa fundable, that we move ahead with this. And the backup plan for funding would be out of our Fund 400 Economic Development, which is funded from our riverboat funds. So we'll prepare that in the resolution, but wanted to make this update on it. It's exciting to move something ahead quickly that's going to benefit us as we work on launching our own organization. So happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Shepro?
Yeah, Mark, what is the allocation of cost among the participating counties?
Sure. So it was done, World Business Chicago developed a budget for them to hire additional staff to do these functions. And then it was allocated on a pro rata share by population. So, as a base, and then we're also looking at other regional collaborative things that could be included, including using some of the regional hubs for innovation and entrepreneurial support.
How wide a net of counties is the project envisioned?
Sure, that's a great question. So CMAP headed up the effort. So it's basically the CMAP 7 counties in the city of Chicago.
Ms. Bates?
Um,
CMAP 7 sounds like an old Western movie.
are we working with Valley Industrial Association or Chamber of Commerce's on this?
Yeah, so we've had some of our main large economic development organizations involved with this regional effort, that being Elgin Development Group and Invest Aurora and the Valley Industrial Association. And then all of those would be important partners for us to strategically plan for and launch our own organization.
And another question we've asked a million times on this committee, is this sustainable after 3 years?
Yes, we'd be looking to sustain our contribution from the Kane County's
Riverboat.
Riverboat Economic Development Fund,
Thank you.
which would be a good use for it.
Madam Chair?
As a follow-up to the outreach to our other economic development organizations that are already here in Kane County, we have their overwhelming support that I've heard. I have not heard anybody saying, no, we don't want this. Having a regional opportunity both for local municipalities as well as throughout Kane County and then throughout the region will do nothing but to support appropriate business growth. And not to go on to what we were just talking about in a prior meeting, but the bigger base that we have in business development for our tax revenue, property tax revenue, it'll take the pressure off of our homes because it'll be shared.
Tax base.
So tax base is expanded appropriately, as will additional jobs and the opportunities that all jobs do present, positive opportunities throughout our county.
Yeah, just a little background, historical background, I guess I would say. We had a full-time economic development department and director at Kane County for many, many years. And during the Great Recession, due to austerity moves and development had ground to a halt, it went away. And then with the tax levy freeze, it never came back. But we had a full-time staff doing that.
I was on that committee.
Right.
Madam Chair's comment put me in mind of a follow-up. Our plan is generally over the years, this, I guess, for Mark, taken the approach that economic development should take place primarily in the incorporated areas. and not in the unincorporated areas. I think that's been in virtually every version of the plan since I think its adoption. Do we envision a change in that philosophy? And if we don't, is this something that the municipalities that will be invited to participate and contribute?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of what the study that we'll embark on will include not only a study of what are our assets, what are the, the changes in the economy, what needs to happen, but we'll also take a look at what is the best type of organizational structure for a public-private partnership for Kane County, like most of the other counties in the region do, who have any large, population and sophisticated economy. So that structure will look at inviting the municipalities to be part of that structure, but primarily the private sector. That's really what makes these organizations work in other counties, is the public-private partnership and the heavy participation by the private sector.
Private sector, yes, indeed. Critically important. This is, the planning for this is Kane County can provide seed money oversight and encourage,
ma'am.
Kane County can provide seed money and oversight and organizational structure as in the case of having an economic development director. But as this opportunity expands, it'll really be the private sector who will be having the major support of this. So all will be bought in with a board of directors who will have oversight to this opportunity.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this?
And it will include all economies, including, as I'm looking at Mr. Kenyon, agriculture.
So look forward to a resolution being put on the agenda for next week's executive committee. And I'm assuming it'll be ARPA eligible, but if not, there's a backup plan in place so that we can move this forward. So, Ms. Bates,
Change the subject.
does it have anything to do with Mr.
Nope.
Van Kerkhoff's work?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Van Kerkhoff, for being here and presenting to us today. Ms. Bates.
Okay, so after the housing summit, this last week was the Kane County Food Security Summit. And so we have many good ideas, many good programs being proposed. And I did speak with one of the leaders at the Northern Illinois Food Bank. And what's happening to our food bank and our food pantries in Kane County is that the amount of free food that they're receiving is dropping dramatically. The example he gave me was before the pandemic, Oreos would come in like pink and green and blue. I don't know. I don't eat Oreos, and so there were many different lines of Oreos, and the ones that didn't sell would be given to the food pantries. So real Oreos would all get sold. The pink, green, and blue Oreos would come to the food pantry. During COVID, they dropped those excessive lines. So now I'm making up the names, but they only have one like pink. They dropped the green and blue Oreos, mint, and I don't know, bubble gum. So that's just one example of the drop in food gifts that the food bank is receiving right now. So they're having to buy a lot more food, and that food is much more expensive right now. And so they are unsustainable at this point. They're running out of food. And his ask of the Kane County Board from the Arpa committee was $5 million for food security in Kane County. $2 million to go to the food bank itself, Northern Illinois Food Bank, $2 million to be spread out amongst the local food pantries, and $1 million to be put into reserves. I asked him for a real proposal. This was just back of a napkin proposal, but I hope we can keep this in mind as we, do our diligence to disperse what funds we still have left. People are still very hungry. The number of clients is multiplying over and over again. That's it. Thank you.
The request was only at $1 million when I was at the summit on Saturday, so it seems to have grown significantly.
Well, I went up and talked to him and he said it shouldn't have been $1 million. It should
Okay.
have been more than that.
All right. Mr. Fraz.
Mr. Chairman, were you going to cover the veterans assistant issue under other committee matters or under old business?
And I shouldn't have said to move on from other committee matters because we obviously had these other things. So that was my mistake. Yeah, that is something I did want to mention. It was briefly mentioned in Mr. Phillips' report, but early on, we had department requests come in, some from Veterans Assistance Commission. They're not exactly eligible under what we're looking at with ARPA, but we are in talks with Mr. Zimmerman to look at that category of veterans in general and how we might be of assistance. We weren't able to include that category in our community support grant program because at the time they weren't eligible yet, those types of organizations. And shortly after we came up with our criteria and categories, that did open up, but not in time for our program. So we're in talks right now to determine what would be a good way to address the needs of the veterans community and how might we use ARPA to do that. So really it's an exploratory phase right now to see what types of things we might do. Is it going to be something that goes through the Veterans Assistance Commission? Is it going to be another community support grant type program? We don't know yet. So I know there are specific organizations that have reached out and would like to be included in some funding. So we just, at this time, don't know what that exactly would look like.
Okay, I guess I'd just like to explain, I'm not an expert on the subject, but we've all heard of the 501c3 organizations, and that's what we based a lot of our grants on. But apparently for veterans organizations, there's a 501c, then VSO, Veteran Service Organization. So because of that little loophole, they couldn't receive any funds from us. So, I would urge the chairman and the committee to work towards closing that loophole and opening up some funding to the 501c VSO organizations.
And I think the C19 is the other designation.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So we're on it and we're exploring that right now
Okay, thank you.
amongst the 15 other things we're doing. But yeah, that's on the.
That's number one, right?
What's that?
That's number one of the 15.
It is now. Okay, so that's that update. I have nothing else. So we will move on to our new business resolutions. We've got a few. They're pretty straightforward for the most part. I'll ask for a motion in a second. A resolution authorizing the use of state and local fiscal recovery funds pursuant to American Rescue Plan Act to fund the purchase of laptops and webcams for the Kane County Public Defender's Office.
Raz moves.
Brown seconds. Brown seconds. This is pretty straightforward. I think it's about $68,000. They just need equipment as they continue to adapt to, COVID and post-COVID world. They need more equipment for their staff. So are there any questions about this? Comments? No? Okay. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Frost,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strothman,
Yes.
Tepe,
Tepe, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Okay, next resolution, I'll ask for a motion in a second, authorizing the selection of a consulting firm and agreement for professional services of the consulting firm for the Federal Emergency Management Agency Public Assistance Program and other federal or state grant programs that respond to the economic and public health impacts of the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Brown moves.
Brown moves, Bates seconds. And this is just, we're finally to the point where we can hire someone to work on FEMA for us. Originally, we didn't think to include that in our RFP when we brought on eventually the firm Ernst & Young. So this is just to add on to the COVID relief services and related services that we'd like to perform. Any questions or comments on this, Ms. Bates?
Could this be Ernst & Young, like another contract?
Can't hear you, Ms. Bates.
Microphone.
Could
please.
this be Ernst & Young?
This could be.
Okay.
I don't know what the correct answer is. Obviously, it can be.
Is this putting an RFP out?
No, we've already done that. This is the process. Vince, if I could ask just for clarification, we've gone through our selection process and have determined a vendor we'd like to hire for this.
Yeah, so it's this committee's recommendation. So after discussion, if that's who they want to select and recommend to the county board is Ernst & Young to handle the FEMA, then this resolution would go forward. I believe from my recollection, or at least what I was informed, is that the proposals of all the different consultants was given out or distributed to the committee for review. And now it's just up to this committee to make a recommendation.
And based on our scoring, Ernst and Young did score the highest. So that's who we're recommending to the committee to approve. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Frost,
Raj, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Strathman, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Resolution is approved. Need a motion, a second for approving invoices or invoice from Ernst and Young LLP for professional services rendered from 5/1/2022 to 5/31/2022.
Raz moves.
Raz moves, Bates seconds. Again, this is just the new process we're having for, we're undergoing for approving invoices. These will be coming to you at least monthly. And this is the one from May. There's more detail, narrative detail included in the invoice. If you reviewed this previously, if you have any questions, you can refer to that first. Otherwise, Mr. Phillips is always available to answer any questions you have. Any questions or comments on this? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Frost,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Okay, I need a motion and a second for authorizing the use of state and local fiscal recovery funds for invoice from Submittable Holdings Incorporated for web-based grant management portal hosting services rendered from 9/28/2022 to 9/28/2023. Submittable is the software platform that we used for the community support grant program, and we continue to use for that, for administering that. It houses all the information and is also the communications line between us and our recipients. So we want to continue that contract with Submittable. Any questions or comments on this? Mr. Phillips.
Thank you. One thing that should be noted, this invoice for essentially a one-year contract, Mr. Fonstock, the CIO or the county CIO, was presented with the contract that was gave us an opportunity for a $3,000 savings if we executed this contract ahead of this date. Mr. Fonstock saw the value in that. So there is a $3,000 savings on this. So I just wanted to mention that.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Frost,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Need a motion and a second authorizing the use of state and local fiscal recovery funds for invoice for Kane County Information Technologies Department for ARP Program Manager Wall Monitor Materials and Installation. If you visit Mr. Phillips up in his office, what is it, room 406? He's got a big old TV on the wall, and it's not for watching Netflix, it's for video conferencing and walking board members through the laborious process that we have.
But it
Or-
could be used for.
Yeah, Mr. Tepe is very familiar with this screen, so just formal approval of that. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, clerk, please call the roll. Oh, did we not have a motion a
No,
second?
I
Oh, I'm
don't
sorry.
think
I
so.
just rolled right into it.
Bypass that.
Man, I'm too much in a hurry. I'm tripping on my own
I
feet.
don't think we did for D either.
Yeah, I don't think we did.
Oh, I don't think we have one for D.
I believe we did.
I
know-
did
believe
D.
we What?
I think it was
Oh,
Brown,
did we?
maybe
Oh.
Brown and me. I'm not sure.
Brown,
Thought it might have been you.
Froz and Bates.
Yeah, that's what I
Frost and
thought.
Bates? Okay.
Thought it was Froz
That's
and
what I did
Bates.
this time. But
Yeah.
for E, we don't have anything.
Brown moves.
Brown,
Strathman seconds.
Brown and Strathman. I remember how to run a committee again.
But you're
Clerk,
reading
please.
really well.
Thank you.
All in favor?
The library reading to kids or something, right? Okay. Call the roll.
Bates,
Yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Frost,
Raz, yes.
Gums,
We're losing gums.
I'm here.
There she is.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Martin, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strothman,
Yes.
Pepe,
Steffi, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. All right, one more. I need a motion and a second for authorizing the use of state and local fiscal recovery funds for invoices from Baker Tilly for additional audit services required for the American Rescue Plan.
Brown moves.
Brown moves,
Strathman seconds.
Strathman seconds. County had an audit performed. Baker Tilly was the group that did that for us. And for the portion that looked at the American Rescue Plan funds and how it was spent, it's reimbursable under ARPA. So they carved that little piece out for us, and that is what you see here today.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, was this for reviewing ARPA documents?
This was part of a general audit that county had performed. And since ARPA is a part of the monies that we do spend, it was included in that audit. So the work performed specifically looking at ARPA data is captured here in this resolution.
But it was looking at other ARPA funds that had been compensated for by the county,
I don't know the
like the
specific,
payroll, it was auditing payroll.
yeah,
that
how
was-
how all the money has been spent so far. Yeah. Mhm.
Thanks.
Was
It's
it
pretty
part-
routine.
I was gonna say, was it part of the Shepro, was it part of the annual audit or?
Yes. Yeah. Our
Yeah.
normal audit that we
Yeah.
have performed, but since this is a part of it now, it was included. So no, it's a big dollar amount, somewhere in the range of $7,000. But any questions or comments on this?
Nope.
This is your last chance to talk about stuff, you guys. I know you want to stick around. All right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Brown,
Brown, yes.
Bras,
Braz, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Leonard, Martin,
Martin, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strothman,
Yes.
Pepe,
Steffi, yes.
is that yes?
Yes.
Yes.
And Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. All right. Thank you, everyone, for getting through this with us. We're going to have a great show for you next week or in 2 weeks. So
On
please
that
come
big
back,
screen?
tune in again.
Bring his big screen down here. Put the
Yeah, we
show
can
on.
get Peter's screen somewhere, block the sun for some of you maybe. That being said, we don't have anything for old business or executive session. I just need a motion to adjourn
We move
by
to
Mr.
adjourn.
Kenyon. Brown seconds. All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. We are adjourned. Thank you for being here.